Welcome to Surfing the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space.
And I'm Bean.
And we welcome you to our episode, which is about what today?
This is the final episode for our Pride Month series, and today we're actually going to go over our Pride emails.
I just want to say that this year for Pride has probably been my most favorite as far as like episodes go. It's just been a good month. Everything just seems to have like be fitting in place just perfectly. And I love it.
Yeah, it has been really fun. I've really enjoyed this season specifically, our Pride season.
Yeah, I mean, have you shared your good news about you getting a job?
No, I haven't, which is weird. Yeah, I got a teaching job finally. I graduated college, and about a couple of weeks after I graduated, I had a handful of interviews and I got a job. And ironically enough, the school that I'm at, their mascot is a bear.
So it works.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So that's rad. Good for you.
I'm really excited about it.
And so there's just been a lot of good things going on. Like, as much as like, last year, we're just pretending last year didn't happen. But it did, but we know it didn't happen. This month, June, has just been like a good month altogether. I don't know, a lot of you, if you paid attention to the news, I don't really like to bring in the news as much just because it can be controversial, but the president designated Juneteenth as a federal holiday. That's a huge step forward.
Yeah, it definitely is.
That is a big step forward because that would have never happened under Crump.
Crump.
He doesn't deserve to have his name said.
Donald Crump.
Donald Crump. Donald Chump. So that's another really good thing to have as well. And
the vaccine is just
yeah,
people are starting to take it, and hopefully we'll keep that that trend going.
Well, and the thing is I was listening on to NPR the other day when I was driving home, and they had said that there was an outbreak of the new Delta variant at a state building, but a few of the employees had already been vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. And so the ones that hadn't gotten vaccinated got that variant, but the ones that had been vaccinated weren't affected. So we know that it works somewhat.
Yeah.
So it's good. So like there are a lot of positives that are happening, and it's great. Don't take that out of context because obviously you don't want to be COVID positive. That's not good.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of good things that are going on, and it's a great way to end the month. And I just can't wait to see what happens for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I know a handful of conventions are opening back up there. I think Midwest Fur Fest is happening this December, isn't it?
It is. They initially announced earlier this year that they were going to not do it. And then they came out of nowhere and said, we are going to do it.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I'm still not going to be attending any conventions. We talked about this, I think, on a prior episode, didn't we?
I think so. The last one.
Oh, yeah. We did a bitch fest.
Yeah.
You'll hear about that like in another month and a couple other episodes to come. So you'll hear about that later. Yeah, but I won't be attending any just because it's just not worth it. Conventions are meant to be social gatherings, and how can you socialize if you're meant to socially distance 6 feet apart? It just doesn't make sense. Makes no sense to me. Plus, furries generally throw the rules of hygiene out the window when they go to conventions, and then you got COVID-19. So
y'all stinky bitches.
It's just, unless they're going to be handing out like travel size Lysols when you pick up your badge, I don't think I'm going to be going. So, not till next year at least.
That's okay. We always have next year.
Yeah, we always have next year. That's for sure. So we asked all of you guys to send in emails. We got a few emails. We went through a few of them, kind of decided what was, what would you say, appropriate.
Yeah.
So we do rate all of them. And so we've got a few to share with you. As we do with all of them, we will go ahead and keep Probably should we just keep all of them anonymous?
Yeah, why not? I
Okay.
think that might be appropriate for this month because you never know what people are going through.
Cool. So we'll call them mystery fur because we don't know.
The
So
first
you
one,
guys don't
mystery burr.
mystery fur because we that way keeps them as a secret and whatnot. And then we'll kind of talk about each one as we go through them, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Do you want to start with our first email of the night?
Yes, I do. So this first email comes from mystery fur. Obviously, I can't tell you who it comes from. So they have to say this. Well, it was around high school when I found out I was really gay and not, in fact, straight as I first thought. I never really fit in with girls back then. I thought I found my first boyfriend about a year after me and my ex girlfriend broke up. We really didn't fit well together and drifted apart. I'm kind of glad I found my first girlfriend because I learned a lot about myself. Although now I consider myself more bi, kind of, but mostly gay. And I just left it at that.
There you go. And that's a good example of how everything is on a spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and you're allowed to explore your sexuality and to change it. I know when I was in high school personally, I thought I was pan, I thought I was bi, and finally I landed on lesbian after a long time of just exploring my identity. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's good to explore and to figure out what suits you, what doesn't, even if it means dating people.
Um, you don't have to pick anything specific as well. Um, the fact that you say that you're bi but mostly gay, I've kind of brought this topic up, but I've never actually talked about it on the show, and I've been wanting to talk about it, and I'm just gonna blurt it out just because I don't think we'll ever bring it up this year. It's
Mm-hmm.
the Kinsey scale. I'm just going to briefly go over it real quick. It's super simple, and I'll put the link and the information down below. You guys can look at it if you want to. It's just a scientific approach to how people can rate themselves if they want to, from a scale from 0 to 6, where 0 is exclusively heterosexual and 6 is exclusively homosexual. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the middle, 3 would be both. And
Yeah.
so you could say that in this case, mystery fur might be a 4 or a 5, where they lean with being bi, but they consider themselves mostly gay. So they could probably be between 4 and 5, and that's where they land.
Yeah.
There's a whole variety of these ones. There was a whole big search into them, and so it's a really unique, interesting read. If you want to kind of go into that, it's really cool. I highly recommend it if you're kind of just bored one day. But I'll leave it at that on that one
Yeah.
particularly.
So everything is a scale, whether it's gender or sexuality.
Yeah. So yeah, that's mystery fur.
That's really mysterious.
Mysterious.
All right. Let's see. Our next one is really interesting.
Yes.
So let's
Which
let me
also
get it.
comes from mystery fur.
Mystery fur. Oh, number 2.
Again. No, Bachelor number 2.
So this one might be a little controversial. But we wanted to explore it
Yep.
and discuss it a bit. So this is from, let's say, did you say also mystery fur?
I said also mystery fur or bachelor number 2.
All right, so mystery fur bachelor number 2.
Yep.
They wrote in and said, I am not currently in the LGBT community, but I am an ally. I don't mean to offend anyone, but I want to talk about a new group of people I've been seeing online and in real life. I am in high school, and recently I've been seeing people that are faking being gay or lesbian for attention, and trust me, I can tell. Some have also been faking tics, which is just wrong. I have ADHD, which makes me mad because they never have had these issues before, but all of a sudden they have these tics now and are feeding the attention from it. I could tell all of this is true because ADHD is not something to use as an excuse, and all the stuff they say about it isn't really true. And I could tell they've never had tics before. Tics can be caused by major anxiety, but it is pretty clear anxiety is not a problem for them. I am writing this because most people faking these are also the ones faking being LGBT. Sorry if this is a rant, but I wanted to bring attention to these people because it is not okay. Thanks for letting me write to you. I love you guys. So this is really interesting, and I want to start off with they do have the perspective for tics and having ADHD, but them not being in the LGBT community but being an ally, it kind of puts you on the fence in this situation.
Right.
Because even if it seems like these high schoolers are faking being LGBT for attention, which, working with high schoolers, I know teenagers will do a lot of things for attention, right? But when it comes to, quote unquote, faking a sexuality, a lot of people will call these people like transgenders if it's people faking being trans, or
Not gonna lie, that's kind of a cool term. Not a good. I
like
mean, I do not support that term, but it sounds cool.
it is catchy. I will give it that. But or the same thing with like being gay or lesbian. I don't think there is. It's very rare for people to fake being gay for attention, especially long term. If somebody is like quote unquote faking it, they're most likely not necessarily faking the sexuality and more so making fun of it. Or, and same thing with tics. You might see people faking having like Tourette's by shouting out words, or faking having Down syndrome. And most of the time, they're not outwardly trying to trick people into thinking they have these issues. They're most likely just making fun of people who are neurodivergent. But with sexuality specifically, even if somebody is faking it, or if it seems like this person isn't genuinely LGBT, I don't think there is anything wrong with somebody exploring their sexuality. Right? Even if it's for attention or anything like that, they will eventually discover, hey, this isn't for me, or hey, being gay actually sucks
Yeah.
because, you're an oppressed minority, and they'll stop. If you get angry with them, then you're just giving them the attention that they want. Or if you let it bother you, then you're just giving yourself negative emotions.
And you've let them win.
And for just essentially no reason. Like if somebody wants to fake being gay and they're genuinely faking it, they'll deal with the repercussions with time. But there is a small chance that they're not faking it and they're just exploring their sexuality, and everybody has the right to that.
I find just a bit of the claims in here too. Now, again, teenagers, I love, because when we were all teenagers, we all thought that we were 100% right all the time. And that's just how teenagers think. But I find just a little bit like a kind of like feeling when I hear, I'm writing this because most people faking these are also the ones faking being LGBT. And that's quite a claim to be saying that people who are faking tics are also the same people faking LGBT. And I wouldn't put those two types of groups together unless you have pretty substantial evidence, fact, or proof, anything behind that. I'm not saying you have to have it, but those types of claims, those aren't claims I would bring up in a conversation or just in general, just because those two really don't fit together and they're completely opposite. They really are. And with tics, do you want to talk about tics?
Yeah, let's talk about tics, because they mentioned how a lot of people with anxiety can also have tics, which and here's the thing. If you have just anxiety, you can have coping mechanisms such
Yep.
as, I have a coping mechanism which I need to quit. I'm trying to, which is chewing on the inside of my mouth.
I did
Some
that.
people will have oral fixations and they'll chew, or they'll like bite their nails, or some people will shake their leg. Those are all types of coping mechanisms, but they stem into tics when they're involuntary and almost painful if you don't do them. For example, Tourette's. If you have Tourette's, a lot of the times, if you try to suppress them, it physically hurts.
Yeah.
That's very different um, than a coping mechanism. So if you have just anxiety, a lot of the times those are coping mechanisms. Whereas if you have a form of Down syndrome, Asperger's, Tourette's, anything like that, even schizophrenia, other just mental illnesses such as that, that's when they aren't coping mechanisms, that's when they are tics.
And also, generally, too, kids sometimes don't want to display these types of items at home, mostly because their parents will dismiss it as, oh, it's nothing. And so maybe they only feel comfortable doing it around their friends or at school where it's an environment where they feel comfortable doing it. And so you may only see it at that time period. We never know what happens to kids when they actually go home into their own home environment.
Mm-hmm.
And depression and anxiety, they are invisible diseases. They're not something that we can actually physically see. You don't know what the person's actually thinking. Now, am I saying that they're faking it? No. We don't know if they are, but it's a claim that you really can't say that they are or are not doing because you just don't know what's going on. And again, if they are doing it for attention, that's what they're doing. But I wouldn't really concern it because that's more energy that you're putting towards them than what you could be doing for yourself and other things and other time.
Yeah.
Things that you could be doing that are probably way more worthwhile than worrying about this guy that's doing something.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where it's like, if they are faking it, sure, it sucks, but they'll stop eventually. Teenagers just, they do dumb shit sometimes, man. I'm telling you. And you just got to let it run its course. If they're not hurting, like, I mean, it I wouldn't say it's not hurting anybody if they are truly faking it, because it's again, it's like a form of bullying almost. Like, they might not be faking it for attention, they might just genuinely be making fun of neurodivergent people or making fun of LGBT people, and that's not cool.
And that's a
But
little,
if they're
yeah.
just trying to get attention from teachers or their family or whatever, then it's just one of those situations where you know it's best to just try and ignore it. If they're not your friends and they're not people you interact with, then just try to not let it bother you, and just let it go the best you can, because if they aren't faking it, then that makes an issue on you and not on them.
And if I've learned anything from high school is a bitch. It
Mhm.
is a hellhole. There is like every trial and tribulation that you could probably go through happens in high school almost. And then real life then really hits you in the face once you graduate. Um, so if they want to fake being gay in high school, have fun with that. If you want to get beaten up, that's totally on them
Yeah.
because that definitely happened to me when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that was not fun. I was in California too. I've been jumped, beaten up, held at knife point. I've gone through it all. Not fun. So I don't think people are I purposely, at least in California, wouldn't want to pretend to be gay. That's at least for sure. Or
Yeah.
in the South. No way.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't know. Just kind of keep an open mind a little bit
Yeah.
and do
Just a
some
little bit.
research. All right. Let's move on to our next email, which comes from, again, Mystery Fur Bachelor number 3. Yay. So, dear Space, Bean, Boomstar, and Dear Dog, hello, you amazing peeps. First off, I want to say that I absolutely love you all and the podcast. It's amazing, and I'm always happy when I see it when y'all post. I just wish you would post it more, but I understand that everyone has their own lives. It's also just because it's more convenient that way, too. So introduction about myself, y'all can refer to me as, okay, so we can refer to them as Graysam or Graysam.
Okay.
So they're no longer bachelor number 3. They are bachelor number Gray
Gray
Sam.
Sam.
And I'm a non binary dude, he, them, who is bisexual, pan romantic. I've been a furry for about 2 years now. I love all forms of art, but I'm best at painting and ceramics. I love writing and making new world. Oh, I thought that said new word. New worlds and characters for those worlds. Okay, enough about that. I have some stuff to share. I came out to my parents and they had a really positive reaction to my sexuality,
That's good.
but not to my non binaries. That's an interesting take because I've not heard stories about this. What do you call it? There's different ways you could say it, I suppose. They think that there is only two genders and nothing else, but I know that they are confused. They're confusing gender and sex, and that's typically true. There are three sexes that I know of: male, female, and intersex. But gender is, comma, in simple terms, comma, a social construct. A lot of religions and societies have more than two genders. Like in the Norse, Egyptian, Hawaiian, and Greek cultures, they have people who weren't male presenting or female presenting, or even people who present as both male and female. I like that they actually pointed that out because that's
Mhm.
actually true. You don't see people pointing that out quite often. I wish they would do that more often. My friends are almost all part of the LGBTQ plus community, and my twin sis is trans herself. I love everyone and support everyone in anyone they love and how they see present themselves. And I've been a wingman more times than I can count. Sorry if this is too long. I just love that I have a chance to talk to some peeps that I look up to. Best wishes, Grayson. So I didn't know what bisexual pan romantic was, so I had to Google it because
Mhm.
there's so many there are so many sexualities out there. So
Again, like we said, it's a spectrum.
it is a spectrum. It's like almost like a never ending spectrum. Um, and so I was Googling it and I was reading through, and I guess what I was telling Bean, I'm like, did you know that there was a bisexual pan romantic? And I was having this argument with her. She's like, yeah, that's been a thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. But then I was reading further and I got it confused. So in November 6th of 2020, someone came up with a easier term rather than saying bisexual panromantic. They termed the word pisexual, so pi sexual, or you could do pyomoric, which sounds worse. So I think bisexual sounds better. So you have bisexual and pisexual.
And if we want to explain that, then so if you say you're bisexual, it just means you're sexually attracted to around two genders.
Yep.
But then if you say you're pan romantic, then you can be romantically attracted to all genders.
Right.
So it's one of those things where sexual feelings and romantic feelings can be separate, which is true for a lot of people.
Yep. So there you go.
Yep.
So thanks. Thanks, Grayson, for emailing us. Very much appreciate it.
All right. And we have one more email, right?
Yes, we have one more email.
Yes. So this email was quite long,
Literally
but
a novel.
we still wanted to discuss it though. So this was a really interesting story. This listener was talking to Space and I about how they were growing up in a homophobic household and how they were always expected to be the straight man that their parents, pushed them to be. But, as you grow older and you begin to explore yourself and explore your sexuality and meet a multitude of people who aren't like those who try to tell you to be one thing when you might be moving towards another, they eventually fell into place as a trans woman with a wife. And I think they also mentioned that they both discovered that they were polysexual, so that they were poly after years of knowing each other. And again, that just goes back to being able to change and flow with the person you're growing into as you get older, and how you're never too old to explore certain parts of yourself.
Can you explain what polysexual is?
Polysexual is when you can have romantic and sexual attraction to more than one person at a time. So essentially, you can be in a 3-way, 4-way relationship. So it's not just like, you know, for just sex, it's not just like a threesome or whatever have you. It's like a legitimate relationship with multiple people. Everybody is consenting, everybody is aware. That is what polysexual is.
I have some friends that are in those types of relationships.
Yeah,
They're really cool.
I know two people who are married and have the same boyfriend.
And they're happy. They are so happy.
Yeah, and they're happy.
Yeah.
And they mentioned how during the pandemic, it gave them the opportunity to quit their job that also had homophobic coworkers and bosses and transphobic. Like when trans people would come into the shop, they would call them it behind the customer's back, which is super inappropriate.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very glad they got out of that situation for sure. And because they were able to quit and get unemployment because of the pandemic, they were able to go back to college. And what I love about this story is that this person went into college for education. And I think at the end of the email, they said they were going to be graduating in a year. And because they are starting to transition into, presenting as how they wish to be as a woman, the people in their cohort, like their classmates and their professors, when coming out to them as trans, all of them were supportive. She mentioned how the professors were really nice about it and immediately, let her dress how she wanted and go by their preferred name, and same with the classmates. And as an educator myself, I love hearing this. And a lot of people, especially teenagers, might think that teachers are not on their side or school sucks and teachers don't care and things like that. But when you go to college for education, you realize just how liberal the field is.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of teenagers might, especially queer teenagers, might feel like school is against them because, there is still a lot of homophobia and transphobia in schools for sure. Especially since there's still a lot of older teachers and older administration. But when it comes to the new teachers going into the field, in school they teach you cannot be transphobic, you cannot be homophobic, you have to be open to this and that, and you have to let your students express themselves this way, and you have to go by their pronouns and things like that. And they teach you how to be cautious around parents that might not be supportive. And I know at my first college, we had a student who was going through their education courses to become a school counselor. And they asked the professor what they would do if a gay student wanted to talk to them because they don't support that lifestyle. And the college kicked them out of the education program because that is proof
Wow.
of bias.
Good
So
for
that's
them.
so that's just an example on how the education field is becoming much more liberal. And in this email, how they mentioned how their professors and their other students were supportive of them. That is so amazing to hear, especially for trans women who have a lot more trials and tribulations to go through, in my opinion, than just gay people. And it warms my heart hearing that. And I do hope, I'm talking to the writer directly, I do hope that you can find a school in which you can express yourself in and be an open, queer, trans woman to your students and to your coworkers, because young people nowadays, young queer people especially, need that so much. They need queer role models that are successful and that are happy, because in media, the queer kid is always the one being bullied. The gay or trans person is always the one that gets killed. We need kids to see happy queer people.
We do. Because the teachers these days, especially when we can have LGBTQ plus teachers, are now going to be heroes. And we need more heroes in the field.
We do.
We do.
We do,
We need more
especially.
inspiration.
So I really applaud you for going into the education field, and I know that's especially hard as a trans woman. And keep your friends close. You're going to need that support, and don't be scared to decline jobs in places that won't accept you. If a school won't let you be openly trans, then it's not an environment you want to work in
It's
anyways.
not
So
the right
just keep
job for you.
looking. You will find what you need and what you're looking for in life.
And it's actually quite interesting that they mentioned um, the Zoom. They mentioned that in pandemic they left their job basically to pursue a better job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been listening more and more to all these different stories on the radio, and more I'm hearing that throughout the pandemic, a lot of families and a lot of people have actually like found that they're not happy with their jobs. And so they have quit their jobs to pursue jobs that are happy for them, that are better for their families, even if that means the pay is not as high as it was before.
Oh yeah.
Because what the pandemic has done is it brought their family together closer. In 1 year, the families, like, it's crazy. It's, well, in 1 year, it's like made people batshit crazy. But in 1 year, it's brought families together and it's brought things to light, and people want to cherish those moments more and more and more. So people are now going and looking for things that they know they have potential for, and if they don't have the potential for it, they're now going and getting that education for it.
Yes.
So in a really weird silver lining, I always try to find the bright in the most like awful conditions. Because of the pandemic, we're finding that a lot of people are finally finding their true callings in life.
Yes.
And that's a good thing, because maybe they wouldn't find it if the pandemic never happened. So it's unfortunate that a lot of things happened, but the silver lining is that a lot of good is coming from it too. And that's amazing, especially something like this.
Yes.
Yes.
I
So
think so too. And a lot of people are they had, I know, for example, my cousin, she's always worked very hard, 2 to 3 jobs at a time, had to move out at 18, basically was forced to. And the pandemic gave her the opportunity to make more money getting unemployment and taking that time to try and find a job and a place to live where it wouldn't make her completely miserable. So there is always a silver lining with things like that. And I'm glad that this individual writer was able to go back to school, especially because, you know, getting stuck in a job that treats you like shit and school being so expensive, if you were able to find a loophole in that through a pandemic, then I applaud you.
I also want to just thank everyone just in general, not just for the Pride episodes, but for the Pride emails, but just in general, all of our listeners that do email us, that confide in us. There's a lot of things that they email us that we don't read out loud, especially in Pride emails too.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in there. Oh, I'm not going to cry. I said I wouldn't cry.
Oh, space.
I'm a little teary, but that's okay. So I was going to try not to cry this year round. Because I always cry. At least one episode out of Pride, I always cry. So I got a little choked up, but it didn't really shed a tear. So I think I won this year.
You got this, bud.
Yes.
I know
So
we did have, I just want to bring up one more,
we did have one email
one
come in.
more, and we didn't want to read this email because it was coming from a minor, and because this show, you know, when we did for media, we definitely pandered to minors and
More
tried
of
to
a
keep like
family
cussing to them.
aspect.
Yeah, more family friendly topics, but we've kind of stepped away from that over the years. But we did want to bring this up because it kind of ties to the last email we read about, you know, the trans teacher. And this was a minor who was talking about it, you know, what it's like exploring your sexuality as a young person, especially in this new day and age. And that's just another reason why it is so important to have queer professionals in industries where there are children. You know, it used to be teachers couldn't be outwardly gay because being gay was associated with being a pedophile. And if you have a job around children, then God forbid, you come out as gay. So it's another one of those things where I'm so grateful to see emails like that coming into us.
Yes. So we want to thank everyone for emailing into us. And of course, as always, if you guys ever have questions or you want to just tell us your story or you just want someone to talk to, you can always email us at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com. You can always find us on Telegram, which is always available in every episode information.
Mm-hmm. Our description.
Yep. And then if you really want to, you can always just send me a message on Telegram. Preferably, I would prefer if you were like 17 plus, just because it makes it a lot easier.
It does, yeah.
Legality wise. But, if not, then I would just prefer it to be a little bit higher than that. You can also reach out to us on Twitter at From the Muzzle there as well if you don't have Telegram. We have a Discord, but we don't use it.
We're really bad about that.
Dear Dog runs the Discord. I think people still chat on there, but I honestly don't know who actually chats on there.
Yeah.
I go on Discord and I get so confused on how to use it.
It can be kind of confusing. I'll join a Discord server and then mute it because I'm a pussy.
I just feel like when I go on it, I feel like I need to know coding to go like play in it or whatever.
Go play in it.
I'm just like, it's so confusing. Exit. And then I go to Telegram and I'm like, simplicity. It's just so much nicer. So anyways, yeah, if you guys have any questions, just send us an email. But anything else? Do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, folks. Well, we'll see you guys on our next episode, which it'll be next week, I guess, next Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.